Hi guys, and welcome to Check Your Leader TV. And today I'm going to discuss or share a video with you that I've put together that traces the scenario that I put together for a participation game at CharlCon in mid-January 2021 here in Central Victoria. Initially, my references for the Battle of Bosworth were based on references that I was able to obtain online and books that I had that had not taken into account recent archaeological evidence in regards to the battle. Now, fortunately, I was able to get in touch with a fellow by the name of Mike Ingram, who did some really amazing work in regards to the Battle of Bosworth, and through his research was able to basically reinvent or retell the story of the Battle of Bosworth so that the archaeological evidence and all the contemporary evidence from the actual period all matched up, and we've now got a fairly good and honest appraisal of where the Battle of Bosworth was fought and who the participants were and how the battle played out. But what was really interesting was when you look through the actual battle, and I should add, you can get this book from Helium, I think it's called Helium Press. Helium and Company, actually, and they've got a series of books. This is in their Retinue to Regiment series. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it if you're interested in the Wars of the Roses at all, and in particular the Battle of Bosworth. It's a must because essentially everything else that's out there at the moment, from what I've been able to gather, is not correct. And so I would really recommend this book. I digress. Anyway, the long story short is what we now discovered is that essentially at the Battle of Bosworth, Richard III's basically falls into a trap, because if you look at how the battle plays out, and I was able to, like I said, actually have a bit of a correspondence, if you would, a chat online with the author of this book, who was really very helpful and very forthcoming. I had ordered the book, but I hadn't received it, and I was trying to get the scenario ready for CharlCon, and fortunately Mike Ingram helped me with a couple of maps, and what I could glean from the information that I could get through this correspondence, obviously without the benefit of having the book, was essentially Richard III falls into a trap, and makes actually replicating the battle very difficult, because on the face of it, you only come to the conclusion that either Richard III on the day was a complete idiot, or he was tactically lured into a trap that brought about his undoing. And essentially, that's exactly what happened. Basically, he had his troops under troops under Norfolk came forward to engage the troops of Oxford. And once engaged, they were taken in the flank by French pikemen, and pretty much that was the deciding factor of the battle. But how do you simulate that on a tabletop? How can you convince, if you're looking for a historical outcome, how can you convince one player to fall into an obvious trap? And the simple answer is, you create a scenario which conceals, prevents one of the players from seeing the trap. And what was helpful was the fact that because the Battle of Bosworth has been so misunderstood, players come to the game, if they do know anything of the War of the Roses, they come to the game with preconceived ideas of how the battle will play out. And if they don't know anything about the War of the Roses, well, it doesn't matter anyway. But so armed with this knowledge, I then set about preparing the game. So first of all, I'll just show you the table setup. Now, I made a very short video showing the setup of the table, where I basically had laid the terrain and the vast majority of the miniatures out on the table, so I could see that, first of all, that it was doable, that I could achieve the scenario on a 6x4 table, because that was one of the restrictions I had on me by playing, setting up this participation game at Charlcon. So I'll show you the setup, and then we'll go more into the actual how I prepared the scenario, or presented it, I should say. Okay, so this video is my video for the setup for the game, the Battle of Bosworth, based on the contemporary history. And so let's have a look at the forces of Henry Tudor. They have 1 cannon, 2 units of light horse. Each unit is only 6 figures strong, 1 here and 1 here. So the light horse are on both flanks. The light horse will operate on the skirmisher card, and I'm also going to give the forces of Henry Tudor 12 skirmishers. So 1 large unit of 12 skirmishers. They also have the Earl of Oxford's array, which consists of 3 units, each of mixed bow and bill, and commanded by Oxford, who is rated as a hero. You then have Henry. He commands a unit of 7 knights, and he is rated as a commander. So he'll command this unit of 7 knights. He will be embedded in the unit of 7 knights. So the unit will fight as 7 knights, plus they'll get 2 automatic hits, because Henry is with them. He'll also have a unit of his personal retinue consisting of bow and bill. Off table will be 2 forces, or 3 actually. There's also a large unit of French pike, trained in the Swiss style, which will consist of a double pike unit, so 24 pikemen, and another 12 pikemen and 12 billmen. So it'll be a pike and bill unit, and a pike and pike unit, and they will be commanded by a commander, which will be the commander of them. There's also the Stanleys, and the Stanleys will consist of a unit of men-at-arms and a unit of light horse, and a mixed unit a unit of bowmen. But they'll be off table, as the same as the pike. Now the Yorkist forces under Richard, they'll have 12 handgunners as their skirmishers. They also have under the Duke of Norfolk 3 units of mixed bill and bow, and the Duke of Norfolk will be rated as a hero. Richard will command a
retinue of knights, which consists of 9 knights, and he is embedded with them. And you'll have a herald, and that's a game mechanism we'll be using in regards to motivating Northumberland. But Richard himself will command 9 knights and a unit of bow and dismounted men-at-arms. There's also 2 cannon, but when these cannon fire, all troops that they shoot at will have a saving throw where they save on a 6. This is because the cannons will be firing onto boggy ground and firing uphill. So they don't get an automatic kill, but they do have a good chance of scoring a kill because any hits will then save on a roll of 6. So that's Norfolk, the artillery, and the skirmishers, and Richard's retinue. Then we have Northumberland, and he commands a unit of 8 knights and a unit of mixed bill and bill and bow. And that is that of the forces. The terrain, the troops are deployed initially well over 15 inches apart, with the forces of Richard III deployed 4 inches back from the road, and the forces deployed basically 16 inches apart. So someone's going to have to advance to get that first shot in, but within cannon range, obviously. There's a chunk of marshy ground there, and there's some high ground here. The actual ground slopes all the way up. There's no defensive benefit for being on high ground because it's a gentle slope. The French pike will enter the table from over this point, and they will be become visible the minute the Yorkist forces touch the road, or actually cross the road, I should say. So if these guys cross the road, at that point they will be able to see the pike, which will be deployed basically, let's see what that's about, 6 inches or 8 inches from the table edge. 9 inches from the table edge, and this is where the French forces will deploy, in this area here. And they can deploy in any way that the Henry Tudor wishes to deploy that pike block. As for the Stanleys, if they enter the game, they will enter off table anywhere from the center point across to the right, and that's where they'll enter from. There's a few other slight rules in regards to that, but we can discuss that later. Okay, so just now would be a good time, I guess, just to talk about some of the specific scenario rules that I used for this game. Now, the order of battle will be in the description of this video. So just below the video, you'll see a heading description. I'll put the order of battle there, but these are some of the rules that I used for the scenario. Just in regards to Northumberland, the way I played him is that he will only commit to battle from the turn in which hand-to-hand combat is initiated, and only on a roll of 11 on 2d6, or if fired upon or attacked by Tudor forces. King Richard III, can modify this roll by spending audit tokens 1 to 3 to initiate a persuasive act, and this is conducted via the use of a herald. For example, Richard's card is drawn. He uses 1 order to move to within 12 inches command range of Northumberland. He then sends a herald to Northumberland. That's the second order. And then he can, if he wishes, use his third order to add a +1 to the dice roll. And then when Northumberland's card comes up, you roll the dice and you would add, in this case, a +1. Now, that would mean you
would need to roll a 10. But if in the second turn, if he has the Herald already there, he can use all 3 command dice. And so that means that he would be able to get Northumberland to commit to the battle on a roll of 11 minus, on a roll of 8 on 2d6. So you can see that there is a chance that Richard can influence Northumberland's commitment to the engagement, into the battle. But if he's doing that, then obviously Richard can't be doing other things. So that's Northumberland. The Stanleys, as their cards come up, they're just dice 4 as normal, and they can be heroes, normals, or normal commanders, or dolts. From turn 3 onwards, both commanders roll a d6. So Richard would roll a d6, and Henry would roll a d6. Then a bonus card. Each time a bonus card is drawn. So from game turn 3 onwards, when the bonus card is drawn, the first thing that happens is both commanders roll a d6. So a score of 7 will see the Stanleys, either in the case of Henry Tudor, if he scores a 7 and it's higher than what the Richards rolled, then the 7s will commit to Henry Tudor's side. In regards to Richard III, if he rolls the highest score, then the Stanleys won't join his side, but they won't commit. So the best that Richard III can hope for is that the Stanleys will not join the battle. And only Thomas Stanley, not William Stanley. So this role is only it only pertains to Stanley the elder, not the younger Stanley. As for the younger Stanley, he will come onto the battlefield from turn 3 onwards. He just becomes available to Henry Tudor from turn 3 onwards. So that's how the table would be set up, and off we go to Charlcon. And on the day, I didn't take any photos right from the start of the game. It was basically a one-man show. I was busy trying to take photos and explain the scenario, and then get the game underway. Essentially, what happened was the player who was playing as Richard III advanced towards Oxford's troops and opened up a cannonade, which goaded Oxford into advancing towards Richard. Unfortunately for Richard's troops, they didn't advance far enough to be in a position where the French pikemen would be revealed, so they were still unaware of the presence of these massed French pikemen on their right flank. In this footage, you can see Norfolk's men on the left of the screen. They've advanced. They haven't got across the road. They have suffered some casualties from bow fire, but they have successfully goaded Oxford's men to come down from the high ground. However, eventually Oxford's men were pushed back by Norfolk's troops, and as they crossed the road, this did reveal the presence of the French pikemen, much to the consternation of Richard III. And true to form, the French pike then hit the right flank of Norfolk's men and started to roll them up. It was at this point that Richard decided that he would personally intervene in the battle. Now, it should be noted that by this stage of the battle, Richard III had been able to convince Northumberland to commit to battle. And so Richard had ordered Northumberland to swing around onto Henry Tudor's right flank. In other words, go up around the boggy ground and then try to sweep in on Henry's right flank. Whilst that was happening, Richard III then decided that he would save the situation on his own right flank and charge the French pike blocks with his retinue of mounted knights. He almost pulled this off. He actually drove in one pike block, but was then taken in turn in flank himself. This caused a lot of casualties, obviously, amongst Richard's retinue. But Richard was still on his horse and fighting on bravely when Henry Tudor came across from his own right flank and pitched into Richard whilst they were being held by pikemen. And this saw Richard III tumble from his horse and killed. And so that's how the battle ended. We got a historical result, the only difference being that instead of Richard dying on the left flank near the swampy ground, he died on the right flank in amongst a bunch of French pikemen.
So there you can see Northumberland's men starting to move around the boggy ground, and then you'll see Richard III. He's engaging these French pikemen, but also getting flanked by Henry Tudor.
In the last two turns, I felt that we both...
So ultimately, it was a really successful day. The participants, the guys that played the game, thoroughly enjoyed it. They both agreed that it was really a close-run battle, and both were very impressed with the rules. Never mind the billhooks, and both decided that they're really going to take a closer look at the War of the Roses as a period to game in, and have basically already started buying miniatures and preparing the miniatures, and they've both got copies of the rules, never mind the billhooks. So yeah, it was a good day and a success. A lot of fun actually putting together a participation game. It's not the first time I've done it, but it is the first time where I've put one together where really you've got to create a scenario where hopefully if you're looking for an historical outcome, one of the players falls into a trap, and concealing that trap and creating a scenario that somehow encourages one player to fall into the trap can be very challenging. But anyway, that's all for now. Like, share, subscribe. If you've got any comments, please feel free to put them in there. In the description, I'll include the scenario notes. And until next time, Yuba Kway.